Hey guys, so I was looking through your discussion board posts on how to incorporate quotes and the three levels of analysis, and I realized that there's still some confusion about what it is that I was asking you guys to do. So I made a new PowerPoint and to help sort of hopefully help you walk you through this better. Um, so yeah. So, as some of you may have seen in the worksheet and in the previous video I made, there are three levels. The first is paraphrase, putting the quote into your own words, essentially it is. So if you have something that's like um, maybe statistics, maybe a long quote with jargon that may not be familiar with somebody who hasn't studied this particular field, that's your time when you can take paraphrasing and putting it into your own words. In a lot of sense, it's sort of like trying to explain to us what it is that's going on in this quote. I noticed that a lot of people were picking quotes that were pretty straightforward, which isn't, bad. I don't want to, it's not bad. But those are the types of quotes that don't really need a whole lot of analysis. Most quotes that will kind of need a lot of analysis are those that are probably a little bit more difficult to understand. Um, so that's sort of an idea. And if you have a quote that's pretty straightforward, um, don't even worry about like quoting it directly. You can just paraphrase and then cite it, and just go on your merry way. you know. So that's the first part. The second part is immediate analysis. Excuse me. So this is where you look at the language of the quote specifically. So what are the important words that are going on? How is it the language? What's the language? What's happening in the language? When it comes to a lot of written material, whether it's news sources, articles, a lot of words are intentional and they're meant to make you feel a certain way. They're meant to shift your perspective in a certain way. And I want you guys focusing on that when you're looking at a quote. How is it that using this one word shifts the quote from maybe being something that's pretty innocuous to, oh wow, that's pretty insightful. And I have an example that I've broken down a little further so you guys can see what it looks like. So yeah. And then finally, immediate analysis. This is the so what of the quote. Essentially, how does it connect back to your main thesis? Why is this quote important? Why should you care? A lot of people are doing a good job with this. One thing I would caution is not to jump too far ahead. Um, so with each step, you're supposed to go, further and further into your paper, into your main topic, into, your main argument. And with this third level, you're supposed to give us the big, um, this is why all of this matters. This is why I've just spent the last, two sentences, three sentences, however long, explaining this quote to you. And this is where it's important. So, again, we're going to run through the example that I have, and you guys can take a closer look. So, in this example, this is a literary paper that I wrote um, a few years ago, and it was based on Thomas More's Utopia, a novel in which the main character, Thomas More, no relation to the author, of course, um, travel ends up traveling to this place called Utopia with some other explorers, and he basically finds a society that tries to um, make itself seem perfect. And my argument is that actually the society isn't perfect at all, but it's worse off. So you can see here my thesis, and then below it I have the quote that I'm going to analyze for you. So in the quote, this is what one character says to Thomas More when he states any individuals who want to visit friends living in another city or simply to see the place itself can easily obtain permission from the grants. So that's the quote that I'm going to analyze. I cited it. Imagine there's a period there. So kind of thing. Yeah. And the Cinograph, if you're curious, are just what they call their government officials. So then, the first part. So here I am setting up my quote. I introduced the quote, and then the quote itself, cited, and here's my paraphrase. The officials claim that members of this community can easily travel outside of it to visit friends or to see another city. Simple, straightforward quote. This is kind of what I want my reader to get the gist of what's going on here. So yeah, this is what it says. Cool. Then we get to immediate analysis. Now, don't worry if you find yourself struggling with this. Immediate analysis really is difficult. Even I still struggle with it sometimes, and I've been doing this for what it feels like ever. But this is what I kind of I imagine you guys doing this. So I say, but a citizen has to obtain permission before they can go anywhere, which means that they have to ask to leave as well as to inform officials of where they're going. So right here, I make sure to point out that obtain permission is the thing that I care about the most. I want you, as the reader of my paper, to be like, oh, that looks interesting. Because for me, when I was reading this quote, I thought, oh, permission versus, maybe just going has a lot of different implications to it. So that's kind of where I'm starting to direct my reader. It's like, okay, we're going in a straight line, and now, oh, look, I'm turning you to this thing over here that's a little bit problematic, and I'm going to tell you why it's problematic in my next sentence. The so what. So my so what is, this suggests that by requiring citizens to go through this process, the government will always know their movement, but it also leaves the door open for the government to say no. Now, obviously, I could have, I can rework this a little better, but essentially that's kind of where I'm going with, is that even though these guys can go anywhere, they can't really go anywhere unless they get permission to do so. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, and I'm suggesting that by needing to obtain permission, well, now you kind of have a whole wheelbarrow of problems. And then this you can do if you would like. You don't have to, but in a true free society, an individual would not have to have gatekeepers preventing them from moving, which is exactly what the system allows for. So essentially, I'm kind of just, breaking it down even further. Like, this is why this quote is so important, because this is how I see them limiting, movement. I see them, controlling, Big Brother like. And that's kind of where I'm going with my main thesis, again, if you remember, is that utopia is not a free society. And as you can start seeing, I hope you can see anyways, how very paragraph-like this is looking already. You have your starting, you obviously have a topic sentence on top, and then you'll introduce the quote in the next sentence, and then you'll throw in the quote and followed by each level of analysis. Now, one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that this was a pretty short quote, and so I didn't have as much that I wanted to say originally. However, because this also is probably one of the, I want to say, heaviest quotes, I could still have a lot to say about it. And that's what I want you guys to keep in mind as you're analyzing. If maybe a quote you have, you're like, oh, this one says permission, but this also says, this other thing over here, and you want to talk about both elements, you can have two sentences that are your immediate analysis. You can have two sentences that are your meta-analysis. You're not limited to just the one sentence for each. So if you feel like you have more to say and you want to say more, because it's sort of like, again, you're building up to it. It's like, we got to take this step and this step and this step in order to get to the landing that I want my readers to get. Feel free to take as many steps as you need. And this also goes without saying, but the longer quote you have, the more analysis you should have. So again, this, I have about 4 sentences of analysis for something that's only one sentence, and I don't even think this was a complete sentence, if I'll be perfectly honest. So if you have something, that's, I don't know, 4 or 5 sentences long, if you have like a block quote, I'm gonna want to see a lot of analysis. You should have a lot to say about what's going on in this quote. So I don't want to see just 3 sentences after a quote that's, 4 or 5 sentences long. I really expect to see a lot more. Um, and so that's something that you should keep in mind as you're doing this. So I hope this helps, this clears it up. You see it as the full thing. Is there anything else? Yeah. So this is the body paragraph itself, how it looks like. And as you can see, imagine this double space and on a page easily covers half a page. And if you do this with every single quotation that you include, you will find yourself filling up those page numbers really quickly. I hope this helps. And if you're still confused about it, please, please, please send me a message. If you want to, do another analysis of a quote and you want me to look it over, just send me an email, say, hey, I threw it, I have this quote, can you check it over for me? And I'll be more than happy to do so. So I hope that helps, and I will talk with you guys soon. All right, goodbye.